Good evening, friends. So, welcome to our daily denim talks once again. And today we have another session with two of our distinguished guests on the topic: what will people wear after COVID? So, my first guest is Sue Barrett. Sue Barrett is a creative consultant and future trends specialist, and is founder of London Future Trends Consultancy Denim Forum, which specializes in highlighting future trend content for the denim and casual wear market. Sue is a natural storyteller, engaging public speaker, and accomplished denim consultant, anchoring influences from vintage, real-time, future trends, and sustainable practices into a vibrant yet commercial mix. Sue's extensive expertise and creative direction influences some of the world's most renowned brands and industry insiders. Hi, Sue. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Nice to see you.
Welcome to the talks.
Thank you.
My second guest is Myles Johnson. Myles Johnson is a very well-known designer who specializes in denim and sustainability. He has worked for some of the world's top brands, including creative directorships at Levi's and Patagonia. He now lives in rural England and works as a freelance consultant. Hi, Myles.
Hi, Sandeep. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you? Welcome to our talks.
Thanks.
So nice of you, both of you, to take out time for these, coming for these talks.
We've got time.
We can't go anywhere.
No,
That is one thing most of us have got in plenty right now.
we've all got in common.
So both of you are in England. How is England doing? How are the things out there?
Sun is shining.
Yeah, the sun is shining and it's a beautiful weather we have at the moment, but we are so badly hit with the coronavirus. I hear 1 in 8 of people in the world that have died are from this country, and it's not lifting its head yet. We're going to get news this week about the lockdown and the how much longer. We'll find out more on Thursday, I think, but it's been pretty horrific.
So it's likely to continue. The lockdown is likely to continue for, let's say, a few weeks more.
I would expect so.
Yeah.
But I think are the things moving in the positive direction yet or not? I mean, are we seeing the curve, top of the curve already? Top of the curve, have you seen it, or still we're yet to see it?
I think we've seen the top of the curve a couple of times. We see it, and then the numbers go back up again, and then it declines. And so I think because it's not stabilized or it's not under control yet, it's difficult to say. So I think best just stay cautious and stay in lockdown and stay safe for as long as we can.
Yeah, I think also people have sort of found their new rhythm, as much as that rhythm may be driving them mad, or it may be actually that they have just found their way with it. They have been talking about things like saying that maybe schools are going to go back in June. And personally, as much as I'm sort of ready to embrace having a little bit more time on my hands, it also feels ridiculously too early. It feels dangerously too early to be coming back into the world. So I would much rather go on the side of caution to move forward.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good time for thinking, going inside, creative thinking, especially both of you are very creative people. So, I mean, I think it's a good time for creative thinking.
Yeah, it's perfect for me. I just feel like I've got so much more time to research and invest in having really good conversations with friends and find out where people's heads are at and kind of play about with creative ideas a lot more. I'm really enjoying the creative process at the moment. It's good.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for our industry, which is probably the most affected industry today, we really don't know what future we have, and most important, coming to our consumers, We don't know what we can expect after lockdown, what they are really looking for. Are they changing their preferences? They are looking for some kind of apparel, different kind of apparel. We don't know. So what is your thought process on this?
Myles, jump in.
It's difficult to say. I think at the moment, obviously, we talk about this often, and we're kind of wondering what the outcome of all this is on people generally. And I feel there's an impatience with a lot of people to get back to what everyone uses the word normal, but I think it's difficult to keep using that word, but because things have to change and things will change, but people have their livelihoods to think about, and they have their families, and they've got to have food and a roof over their heads. So there's a lot of concern at the moment, but there's something healthy coming out of this as well at the same time. So just trying to find the balance and the logic in all of that, really, from my side.
Yeah, I think also it's so many people.
See, we lost you, I think.
I lost you, sir.
Maybe Myles, you can continue until the. Yeah. See, sorry. Can you restart because we lost you?
Sure. I think what from friends that I've been speaking to, it's really affected them very differently. Right? For some people that are still working, but maybe are furloughed, so working less hours, they still have an income. They still think they're just waiting for things to reset back to normal. Whereas for other people, they've lost their jobs or they have no work coming in. So their experience of income is going to be very different. So for some people, they'll be ready to re-embrace the world. If you think back to how it was in the 50s, like after the war, some people were out there with their party dresses and those beautiful, beautiful outfits and really celebrating and dances. And whereas for some people, it was absolute disaster. So I think it's going to affect people in such different ways. But I think there's also the way that brands have been exploring this. It's like the dialogue that brands have been having with their consumers. There have been some e-tailers that have been sending out, here's my top essentials for summer. This is the new bikini that you need to buy. Check out these shoes that are going to get you the most likes on Instagram. And yet there are other sort of higher level retailers that have been talking about, this is how to do your own, your own fantastic suit, and these are the 5 books that we found as a community that were better for you, and these are the clothes that might be giving you comfort in this time. So it's insane the amount of messages that have been coming out in terms of sort of social media. But I think it's also really important to remember that as much as we are a community, within that community, we're such different humans. You've got, introverts, extroverts. All of those people are going to be engaged and disengaged by completely different messages. For some people, their escapism is to, is to be drinking their way through it. For other people, it's to be learning yoga and doing loads of meditation. So there is no normal within this lack of normal.
No, and values have changed so much. So people are really looking at different things that maybe they didn't look at before, and all that brand communication, at least it's interesting, at least it's entertaining. Whether you're going to start to want to buy back into clothing or things from a brand, that's, sometimes I just find that just too difficult to think about at the moment. Like starting to spend money and buying clothes when you just don't really need them, but it's interesting to see the behavior.
I mean, people have been talking about revenge shopping, and we have seen that in China also. A lot of people have come out and they have gone for revenge shopping, big purchases, and One of the brands probably sold $2.7 million of goods in one day. Luxury brand. I mean, that was Gucci or some other brand, I think. So, I mean, do you think that that kind of behavior also is a possibility in some of the European countries and Western countries like US?
I don't, because I think that people are going to be quite cautious for a while on their spending behaviour, because just there's still that uncertainty about this disease and what its future is going to look like. And people talk so much about a second wave, and I have to put myself in the mind of a consumer quite often, and I just can't imagine going out and spending money on clothes right now, because we're living in a bit of an anti-fashion time, and the clothes that we wear, I mean, I roll out of bed and put the same clothes I had on yesterday, and I don't care, and because no one's going to see me apart from today, but you know what I mean, it's not so important. And so I see a lot of brands selling product off extremely cheap, because obviously there's huge stocks that they need to shift, so the prices are really low. And even a neighbour of mine the other day said to me that he'd seen online great bargains, and I was thinking, ooh, okay, well, you know, each to their own. And if you've got some party to go to, or maybe your Zoom is so high tech that everyone can see what you're wearing, and if that's important to you, then go ahead. But for me, I'm holding on to my money because I want to make sure I can buy food.
Yeah, I think there might be, and I absolutely agree with you. That's where my head and heart are at. But I think if you are a discount consumer, if that's what floats your boat, then this time is going to be magic for you, because if you're still in work and you are at home and people are shoving at you, you can get it for the next 72 hours, you can get 40% off. And if you buy this amount, you're going to get it even higher. So for those people who are still in salary, it's a different ball game, and they will be absolutely going, oh, great, you know, because for them, that discount value and getting all of that stuff is what makes them feel alive. And that's their form of escapism, is to fill their house with more stuff to make them feel protected.
And I suppose being restricted, when we were in lockdown, we were so restricted as well. There's so many things we're not allowed to do, and I think that makes people want to do the things we're not allowed to do. So maybe I could be completely wrong, and that people might just, you know, like herd of elephants stampede to the high street for a bit of retail therapy. But, you know, we'll see. We will see.
Yeah,
it'd be very interesting though, because if they do stampede to the high street for retail therapy, and they're made to stand in queues like 2 meters apart, and it takes you 4 hours to get into that shop, there won't be any more stampede. Will be very slow.
Yes, yeah, single stampede.
Maybe the online retail will win, you know, the game. If that is the situation, if people want to buy and they don't want to go to the shops, then probably online retail will be the winner.
Yeah, well, the online business is just going to absolutely boom. But I do think that there's an amazing opportunity for brands to start to align on size setting. So if all the international brands can start to work on their forms, so all their measurements all being the same from brand to brand to brand, it's going to be fantastic for the online business, because it means that you're going to have a consistency with when you buy a product, you know that a medium's a medium, and it's going to, you know, whatever size you are, and it's going to fit you the same as all the other brands. And there's not all that worrying about whether the thing that you're going to buy online that's going to appear on your doorstep tomorrow is going to fit you or not. And so there'll be a lot more aligning, I think, with that type of work.
But also, I think, you know, there's so much talk about digital fashion that's coming through, and the avatar world that for some consumers is really, really engaging. And Nike have brought out thing where you can basically, with your phone, it can scan your foot and it will tell you exactly what size you are in their brand. So people are thinking about, how can I create my online collection? How can I create this digital avatar space with photographing collections, which will be a very slow lead time. That's not a fast fix at all. It's great if you've got amazing basics that you can slowly produce and go, this is the value of my brand. This is the essence of my brand. This is what I really stand for. And all the fast fashion stuff will have to be through a different channel. But if you were able to, if the brands were able to create a self-scanning device, terrifying thought really, but if you're able to create something like that, then the consumer will then be much more able to go, oh, this is the one that's going to fit me, or something that will then go, based on your body shape, these are the styles that might be better for you. So it's a whole new way of thinking about digital fashion that could actually just really meet the consumer. And that's not really been in the market. It's so much influencer led. I think the women's wear market is different from the men's wear market, because the women's influencer market is all about, it's all about floral dresses and leopard prints and floaty this, and that really pumps the message of, if you don't own those things, if you don't dress that way, you will not be fitting in with society. But actually to go back to, this is what suits your body shape, is something we've really forgotten. This is what suits your style and your taste has been forgotten over the last few years, where fast fashion has really sped up. And it's like, everybody must wear this. Everybody must dress in man pink, or the millennium pink. Everybody has to dress like this to fit in.
Do you think that do you remember in the early 2000s, everyone was putting denim bars into their stores, and do you think that's going to be something that might come back? Because we all know with jeans, it's just one of those things where you want to maybe try on a few pairs and make sure you really get the one that really works for you. It's not just something that's that easy to buy online, but that one-on-one kind of customer kind of service that you could provide to people. I sort of feel like that quality of service might end up coming back in the denim industry, I hope.
Yeah. And I think it's quite difficult for denim sales to compete within that influencer mindset of the moment, because when you see e-tailers drop information, or you see brands dropping information about their new products, it doesn't have the same wow factor as all the other stuff, the leopard print, the sportswear, it just, because denim is such a humble product that it doesn't have the high energy draw of the other product categories that it's competing with. So sometimes you'll get something from an e-tailer that says, these are your absolute top 5 denim key styling looks at the moment. But it doesn't, the noise is what people are really hooked into. So denim going forward is going to have to find a new rhetoric. And I think also the fact that denim has become quite a dumbed down product. It's not about, it doesn't meet the values that it used to meet, in terms of, it was a product that you knew you could have for gardening for 10 years in the way that it was 20, 25 years ago. It's become such a fashion product, and it's actually weakened its message in the market by being, it's got rips on it, it's got this, it's got that. Is that what people want to buy into? Do they not want something that's going to have a different message? And I think that the only, or not the only, but one of the brands that I've seen that doing that really successfully in a really powerful way recently is Kings of Indigo. They brought out their Regen collection. And there's an image that came through on Instagram, I think, and it was a woman standing in she wasn't wearing like a skinny fit. She wasn't wearing a regular fit. She was wearing a fit that was quite sort of contemporary, but no washing, it was raw. But the message that came through was, this jean has not hurt any animals and has not hurt the planet. Nothing to do with styling, just a really, really impactful message about the planet and about what that jean can do.
That kind of messaging, people have been trying, different brands have been trying through various sustainability targets, claiming to be 100% sustainable and claiming not to be, having carbon footprint. And so, I mean, those messages have been there, but they have been so mixed. Probably, I think the consumer is some way lost, and that is something you're right, Steve, because we say that denim has lost its force when it has become such a cheap fashion product. I mean.
Yeah.
So also it brings also the question of another question which brings in the current times the question of comfort. Yeah.
So just to answer your question on sustainable brands, I mean, there's been a lot of talk about sustainability. Now sustainability is such a massive subject, and it seems that a lot of different companies have responded to it as a subject in so many different ways. Now, there's leaders there, but no one's 100% sustainable, and those that say that they are, I question it. And I think, as a consumer, as a designer, as somebody that's invested in working with different companies, it's important to really work out what you can do, but you have to keep trying to work out what you can do more. So I don't think it's good enough to reduce the levels of, or the amounts of water that you use in a process and pat yourself on the back very quickly for doing a great job to save water and then tell everybody that you're a sustainable brand. No, we're in this situation now where we've got a lot of time to think about how we're going to respond and come back doing much more than we ever have done before. And there's so many things. I mean, if you gave me another hour, I could go through some of those things. But I think the expectations to brands as well, it will be much more like people are going to need to know whether the consumer's asking or not. The transparency needs to be there on all aspects of the process, where everything comes from. And I want to see that. I want to know how my garments are produced and where everything down to the fibre and the stitch, where it all comes from, including who made it and how things have moved around, and how much dye or water or chemical has been used. Or I need that, because we're at that stage now where we have been churning out denim like sausages, and it's just not good enough not to have all of that information. So we're at a big junction at the moment. We can very easily fall back into bad habits, or we can say there are better ways, but it does require companies talking to other companies. We've all got friends in the industry that work at different companies. I mean, I know designers in hundreds of different companies, and I often pick up the phone and ask them how they're doing it, or I'm happy to share the experience that I've got to help people, because I think that's being responsible. And people talk about being responsible brands, and that's what you have to do. So what I'm edging towards now is accountability, that companies now are accountable for everything and being completely transparent and completely honest about it. That's going to be so important in a brighter future.
So, I mean, sustainability is, as per you, is a loser or a winner from this post-COVID? Is going to be getting strength from this COVID, or it's going to lose strength?
I think it's going to be so important. I think it has to be the filter on everything we do. Everything will have to be sustainable, not a little bit, but it will be so important that we will stop talking about it.
Yeah, but I do wonder, because I was thinking about this yesterday, and I absolutely agree with what you say, Myles, but I was thinking about things like the makeup industry. And I mean, I can't even think back to how long ago was it that like the Body Shop started talking about, this is not tested on animals. and the skincare that we put on our faces. But we never, unless you're very, very good, we won't check to see, is our fabric softener tested on animals? Is our toothpaste tested on animals? Is our skin cream tested on animals? So even though we sort of know that in the back of our minds, I think if you were in the industry that was connected to those products and you were more exposed to that information, you'd be probably more ready to be checking that data and the facts around those products. And I know people that are absolute heroes around, I will only use this particular skincare brand because it's really good for my skin, but it's also not tested on this, and it doesn't have any of this in it. And I have to admit, I'm guilty of just going with what's available, what's closest to me, or what's in my price bracket. And I think that probably reflects a lot of consumers. But those consumers very much trust the brands to do the right thing. I trust a brand that makes a particular skin cream to not be putting, carcinogenic properties in there or stuff that's going to be bad for my skin. I trust them to do the right thing, and I think that as consumers we blindly do that. So the emphasis, I think, needs to come.
Look, well, just to pick up on what. Oh, sorry, Sue. I thought we'd lost you then. But I going back to the brands that produce the clothing, I mean, I will always trust Patagonia to do the right thing on their product. And, I can't speak highly enough for their approach to how they design and how they produce, because they really will do everything they can to make it as sustainable as they possibly can. And so I really hope that more companies follow that lead, really, because when you don't hear anything about the way product is produced, that raises alarm bells for me. But when companies are freely offering a lot of information, okay, I don't get through all the information sometimes, but it's just really good to know it's there.
Yeah, but I sometimes wonder if legislation will be the tipping point, that government legislation on brands. I know that in Holland they were talking about the right price, and that actually making products that were made not particularly ethically in the wrong kind of circumstances using the wrong products would have a higher tax, so that to the end consumer it wouldn't be that they would be buying a cheap garment, because the tax that would go on that brand would make that product just as expensive for the consumer to buy. So they may therefore start to seek out products that were made better, because in our understanding, a product that is cheap has cost the environment more. So buying something cheap is not, cheap for who, cheap for what? But it's that information hasn't yet reached the consumer in a way that's powerful enough. So brands like, companies like Fashion Revolution that do an amazing job in their sort of fashion anarchy and highlighting the problems. What we actually need is that those companies also highlight the people and champion the people that are doing it brilliantly, and actually start to share those business models so people can understand. They might, they will understand that there's a bit of shaming around having stuff, but if Nike had done something wrong and used the wrong factory, the mass market is not going to stop wearing Nike. But if there was a greater feed of information and greater information about these guys are champions in the way that they do things, and that was communicated through Instagram, it's such a fast way to get into people's mindsets, and it's such a fast way to impact people's, the back of their mind. That would be the most powerful thing going forward, is championing best practice, sharing best practice, and showing who is doing it brilliantly and how we can all jump on the back of that.
Yeah, and also showing some foresight and thinking about the future and making plans for 5-10 years out, because not everything's possible at the moment, but a lot of people have a lot of ideas, and there's a lot of innovation going into sustainability as a subject. So what about how refreshing it would be to hear people say, this is what we want to do. It's not possible right now, but in 5 years' time, this is what we want to achieve. I think as a consumer, it would be really refreshing to hear what people's plans are, because that's like getting into the head of a brand or a company and understanding the way they think a little bit more. And it's just being really open.
I think it
Really
is.
nice.
Yeah. Sorry. I think H&M and other retailers have declared their plans for 2030 and how they want to be more sustainable and how they want to, use recycled materials. Some of the goals have been declared by some of these retailers, big retailers. So, I mean, if it is more prevalent and it's more of the brands and retailers follow this, then probably it adds more value.
I think, I still think it has to come from the government. I still think there has to be a tax on stuff that isn't done right, or they have to be accountable. And I mean, I've noticed a shift in the last 2 years since sustainability became a thing that brands and retailers had to be accountable for. All of those, the head offices that used to have budgets for, I don't know, large travel budgets, for example, or marketing budgets, that money has been siphoned off into sustainability teams. So if you want to go and talk to a brand, usually the sustainability teams have got the budget that used to go into another area. So they are sitting up and listening, but I think they're very good at knowing, are we doing enough? Are we just doing what we have to do because our profit margins, how's that balance coming through? So definitely legislation will be the tipping point, I think, in reality, because we're coming out of a crisis. But if people start to think, I mean, the design stage of product is so valid. It's that 80% of the decisions are made at the design stage. So if people sit and think, does my product have a future? What is the future of my product? Where's it going to go to? If we stop and actually think about where that's going to go, the longevity of that in people's wardrobes, does it have an emotional connection to people? Or is it just a 5-minute thing? And if designers can have that as part of their sort of like essential toolkit, that will give us the chance of creating stuff which creates less impact to the environment and less impact to our wallets, which will be an enormous mindset going forward.
Yeah, brand responsibility goes so much further than making it and selling it. And so now it's going all the way through to a guarantee where you will buy back that garment back from the person that you sold it to at the end, and you take full responsibility for it to be recycled back into something else. So that's the circular thinking in design now, is that you design product to be the best quality and to last the longest amount of time, and you also design it to be repairable, and you also design it to be recyclable.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I lost it.
No, it's okay. So yes, yeah. Yeah, you're looking much younger out there.
Thank you.
So yes, I think both the points very valid. I mean, the government intervention is very, very important. If that happens, the things move very, very fast. And what Myles has said about design process to the brands to take responsibility for the whole life cycle of the product, taking it back and recycling again. So if that happens, they have to work on high quality garments which have to last for a long time, and it's in their interest then.
Yeah, I think built to last, built for purpose, is possibly going to be a higher value than just fast fashion and look at me now. And if I think about, I get quite a lot of prompts from e-tailers that are sending through, information about what they're selling at the moment. And there was something that came in recently. It was like, wear your new neon garments. And all I can think is, what chemicals go into making neon?
Pretty bad.
Really going to worry about neon right now. So that the whole message system, and I know that a lot of that stuff is the marketing messages about products that are available coming through the system is pre-recorded. It's pre-recorded, weeks in advance. So they're sort of, at the mercy of the system. But there is a time to actually, respond to.
But people are talking so much more now about the antibacterial, antimicrobial, temperature control, performance aspect to the yarn, to the surface, the way things are treated. Those sorts of things now should be becoming much more important in people's minds rather than just the way they look.
Yeah, and I think if you were to go into, I don't know, just as an example, if you were to go to Uniqlo or the Gap and you've got, you know, 2 jackets hanging next to each other, and one of them says antiviral, you know, self-cleaning, anti-UV, and the price is only marginally more expensive than the one that hasn't, I'm pretty sure that that one's going in the sale and this is the one you're going to take home. Because, I mean, if you are somebody that has to go on the subway every day or commute into the centre of town, you know, protection is going to be so much more important. So those products are going to be huge.
So when we are talking about production, I mean, what do you think is the most important stage? The fiber stage, the yarn stage, the finishing stage of the fabric, or the garmenting stage? I mean, what stage the most value in terms of production can be added?
Oh.
I think that's difficult to say, because my natural instinct is just to say all of those things.
Yeah.
I don't think we have much visibility on the fibre stage, and I would like to see more of that, because I want to make sure that we're protecting the farmers, because there's a big difference between the people that grow a natural fibre or produce a yarn to a mill that produces the fabric. It's not, the mills aren't responsible for necessarily growing their own cotton or whatever it is. So there's visibility needed there, and so those people are well looked after, and we all know how things are produced. But also in the finishing stage, which is using so much chemical and causing so much water pollution and air pollution, there are, of course, now we know better and cleaner ways to do things, but again, we just need more visibility there. So I'd like to see picture process, a breakdown of like how things are produced, and I think the more we have visibility of those things rather than just lengthy kind of explanations and lots of words to read, which people don't tend to do, just being able to see those things might really start to change people's minds, or make people a bit more curious and make people ask more questions to the brands.
So I mean, you think it is feasible to have real, good apparel products which can give protection to us, to the consumers, when we have, but we need to have the right technology for that and bring it out to the consumers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just free information, readily available, easy to sort of like to tap into, and whether it's going through someone's website or, clicking on some sort of barcode that's attached to the garment so that you have that. It's been something we've talked about so much over the years, but I just feel like now we've just got this opportunity to make some really healthy changes in this direction, I think now.
Yeah.
If you go into, if you're looking for denim and you're looking through all the different retailers online or in the store, it's actually quite hard to find out the fibre breakdown accurately. If you were looking for, the most sustainable jean or stuff that's 100% organic cotton, you generally have to really, really scroll down, open another button that goes into the detail and the fibre content. And in some cases, they just say, it's made with da, 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 da. But if you go into another link, it tells you that the breakdown is slightly different. So actually, there are very few denim mills or denim brands who are selling their products based on, this is all made of hemp, or this is a high percentage of hemp morning. And they're actually doing the SKU count by fibre content, or doing the breakdown on a website by fibre content hasn't really been something that consumers have asked for. So until it comes through from the consumer mindset that, we're actually looking for stuff that maybe is made of a higher tencel content, because we understand that may be a more circular way of, about yarns, for example, it's all going to be still about, it's the new flare, it's the this, or it's the one that makes your legs look longer, because the fibre content hasn't been a consideration. Whereas perhaps going forward, perhaps this has been the tipping point to reset some of those values. perhaps we've got enough skinny leg jeans in the wardrobe, and we've got enough dungarees, or we've got enough jumpsuits, or whatever is the new thing to have. But have we got the right one? Have we got the one that is the one that's going to be better for the planet? It's not hurt any animals, it's not hurt any waterways, is regenerative for the soil. But people don't know that's available. I think the normal consumer does not know that that's an available product for them to search for. So what an exciting time to be able to convey that information.
And they possibly haven't really cared until now. But I do think that with this stopping and really thinking about what's important and values being reset, finding out about those things being available, and if more brands and more companies started moving in that direction, then you'd be able to choose which one you wanted to go, which brand you wanted to go to, because which brand was doing the most, not just slapping the word sustainable on a garment and trying to hook people in that way. It's you're going to have to tick a few more boxes than that.
Yep.
And now
sorry, please.
Sorry, I was just thinking, if you were I don't know if it's an average consumer, but if you were to go onto ASOS and you were to then click onto want to look at skinny jeans, what is the SKU count? I mean, sometimes there's 1,000 on a particular product. How are you going to decide? Why do we need to make so much stuff? And I know that Myles, you talked in the past about going into brands and actually helping them to understand better a better way of even structuring their collections on a season. That, why do you need 7 white t-shirts? Why do you not just go down to 2 or 3? Or why do we create so much? And I think that that's also a message for retailers, especially when going back into the workplace. The fibres, the fabrics, the production capabilities may be vastly reduced. So people think they're going to go back to normal and that everything will be back as normal, but there may not be the resources available to create that stuff. So create it from your stock, create better, create less, and make a more impactful message.
Yeah, and I think we could be much more efficient, can't we, on materials, and like you say, like less designs, less collections per season. I mean, it had got crazy, and deliveries was really crazy as well. But when I look at the old days of when I worked at Levi's many moons ago, when producing 14 washes for the 501, we managed to do it out of 3 fabrics. So really investing more into fabric and doing more with those fabrics. I look at brands, it's a designer's brand, Capital in Japan, they really invest in a few fabrics, and then they do so many different designs using just a few fabrics, and that's so much more efficient. And beautiful fabrics, very good taste, but we've fallen into a bit of a habit of just one fabric, one wash, one style, and it's just got so messy with trying to really push the volumes up, and everything just got so much scale. So then it was expected in the end that a lot of those garments would go to landfill.
Because in the olden days, back to you, Myles, it used to be that a brand DNA was something you were proud of. As a brand, you had a really strong DNA, you had a strong narrative, and you chose fabrics and you chose colours or styles that fitted that DNA. And I think with the rise of the high street over the brand, those kind of like brand DNA values kind of had to go to the wall, because they had to compete with all the other crazy stuff that was going on, and the price changes and the drops and deliveries. But actually creating a brand DNA again that is looking at your brand and saying, okay, well, slubby fibers, definitely. I remember there was one brand that I worked for as a consultant, and they would not have any colours that had a real sort of vintage, smudgy, greyed off aspect to them. It all had to be super clean, super collegiate, super bright. And I couldn't understand that, because I was all about sort of vintage attributes and da, da, da. Now they have everything. They have everything that's going. So their brand DNA is very, very much diluted. But going back to that, it's like there needs to be, like, you go to a certain brand for a particular kind of look, you go to a different brand for a different kind of look, and it makes it much more exciting to not go into every brand and they've got exactly the same sweatshirt, but there's just a slight variant in price, and they're all, you know, so much stuff on sale. Doesn't make it exciting to go to retail.
No.
So what coming coming to high street fashion, what is the likely outcome for the high street fashion? What do you visualize in the coming 1 year, let's say?
Well, the high street, I think, is going to change massively, and we've all been getting more in kind of tune with retail being not the retail experience it used to be, but perhaps retail is going to become much more of a showroom experience where people will go to understand a little bit more about the brand and to see the clothes in a situation where they can understand it, so that they can go home and buy it online. So I think for me, that's what I feel is going to happen, is that people will start to kind of see the high street not as you know, something to tear around and fill shopping bags, and but much more as an experience to go out and learn a little bit more about the product. I don't know, what do you think, Sue?
You know, I was struggling with the concept of over the next year, but I was thinking about what would be amazing as a future for.
We lost you again, Sue. Myles?
Well,
I froze there, didn't I?
She's back.
I think I was thinking, I was kind of going off on a slightly different tangent, and I was thinking beyond what's going to happen in the next year, which I know that's obviously the tricky one, that's the big one that people want answered. But I was just thinking about what might be more interesting for consumers going forward. What might be a more interesting experience? Is it that, and I know this is something that retailers have tried to start, but imagine that you had a go-to person in a store. I mean, this might be going back to the olden days, but that person knew you, they knew your style, they understood what you were interested in. And you could kind of go into to see that person, and they go, I've got these are the things that I think would be great for you. As a, you know, this fits your, you know, where you want to go in the world. If you want to be accepted better in this particular environment, these are the jackets you need to wear, sir. This is the suit that's going to fit you better. These are your colours. This is stuff that's going to make you look more powerful, more feminine, more whatever. A personal shopper. And if brands were able to really meet people and make that person feel unique and their best self, wouldn't that be more exciting than having to struggle through, do they have that in my size? Oh my God, they've gone to the changing room, and when are they going to come back with my size after they've had a tea break or had a long chat on the phone? Are they ever coming back? So retail has become not the most exciting experience. It's exhausting, but there is so much that we can do to make that better and make it more personal.
Yeah,
so
quality.
Thinking about what you would like to create going forward as a future and going towards that is more exciting than like, how are we going to survive this next bit of time? Because we're going to be knee-jerk reacting to the stuff around us, but creating something much more impactful for seeing that human as a greater than the sum of parts that is a store would be more exciting.
So that's yeah, that needs probably a lot of integration of artificial intelligence, because retailers probably need to personalize each customer, in a way that they feel, it's every person is every customer is a special person for them, when they are coming to the store.
And I know it sounds like a premium thing, but to have, whether it's even that you go into a showroom and buy products, or that you go into a particular space, but there's no reason why retail couldn't be part showroom, and people are looking at stuff on a digital online platform. People don't need to wade through an exhausting rack of garments to find the thing that's their size. they can order it and it can be sent to their house in just the same amount of time, and they don't have to carry the bags. So this is something that's happening more in the Asian market, where you go in and stores actually become more of a digital gallery, and people can then talk to you about product specifics, about educating you about products and helping you choose something that is more for you. So I think definitely that sort of digital space, we can use our stores, our bricks and mortar space, much more creatively than filling it with stock. Because actually, if we wanted to create a beautiful gallery that reflected our brand, we don't have to fill it with stock. We just need to incentivize people to come in and meet our brand with what we've excited them by. It doesn't need to have stock in there. It just needs to have something that draws them in. And that can be colour, it can be words, it can be all sorts of things, it can be animals.
Yeah,
sorry. Yeah, Myles, you want to say
Sorry.
something?
No, I just said it, and also could be art. I mean, it could have almost become like a sort of gallery, like museum experience. You get so much more than just going in and buying yourself a new pair of jeans. You know,
Yeah.
I think there's a lot to learn. I mean, especially if we're going to start really scraping back and revealing a lot of interesting information about the steps and stages of producing garments. Then, you know, I'm sure that can be made to look really interesting and really draw people's attention.
And it may also be that in this next phase of time where we may be hit with, you know, economic worries, that to go into a store and you're trying on a particular item and have somebody say, these are the 5 different ways that you can style this to make it a much more important piece of your wardrobe, rather than just like, oh, does this work? Or for somebody to actually go, I'm going to show you why this piece of this might be a central part to your wardrobe, or the thing that you need to buy, because you can do it like this, you can wear it with that, and especially in the women's wear market, that's really important. Do you wear it with that shirt, those heels, those flip flops? How do you style it? But help brands helping people to understand the diversity of a product and creating something with the plan to have that diversity. It's like, I bet you're not wearing suit jackets at home right now, because why would you need to, unless you're in a Zoom meeting and you've got your best shirt on? But like, if you have
taking the trash out, I'm getting really dressed up for that.
There you go.
Tops are most important for the Zoom meetings, you know.
Very important. I'm not wearing trousers at the moment.
And what about you know, one of the most important point, that is the comfort. You know, how are the customers, you know, specifically when they are restrained to their homes, everybody is at home, and in next 1 or 1.5 years, this is likely to be a, you know, continuous scenario in some ways. So how important is comfort, and how you know, the brands can address that?
Yeah, obviously comfort is so important at the moment in lockdown. That's all we really want is comfort. But beyond lockdown, I imagine people will need more than just comfort. And we've been talking about this quite a lot, about, you know, what customers' expectations are from the products. I think people will need so much more.
Yeah, but I think it's, you know, at the moment, comfort for most people, and for people that I've spoken to in different brands, it's like, well, we're definitely going to be raising our joggers, you know, our collection of joggers, because people won't go from, like, you know, into June, they won't be going straight back to work. There's still going to be like a phase of time, could be till autumn, could be, you know, we imagine it's going to be autumn, but we don't really know. I suspect people have bought their joggers right now. I don't think they need any more. I think they bought their performance. What were the first things that sold out? Was performance wear and garden games. Who knew? And jigsaws. Couldn't get a jigsaw for love nor money. But so unexpected areas. But I don't think that we need to have more joggers. But I suspect we also don't need to have more like tight, skinny jeans. I imagine that fibres that will feel nicer and closer to your body will become more important. I mean, Myles, you had a great thing that you talked about a few years ago when you talked about the value of fibres, as the emotional connection with fibres.
Yeah, we did some interesting tests when I was at Patagonia about what it was in people's wardrobes that people gravitated to and had the most emotional attachment to. And it was all the natural fibres. So it was all the cottons, the linens, the hemps, the wools, all these types of things, that all the tactile stuff. But those were the things that people loved from their wardrobes. The synthetic man-made fibres, far less. The only exception was great waterproof coats, because they've served them well, and so people still kind of needed to have those pieces in their wardrobe, and they still kind of, if they had to run and grab items from their wardrobe, then that would also be another thing that they would go for. But it's interesting, people's emotional attachment to jeans, cotton jeans anyway, I think, over the lycras and the spandex and the synthetics.
Yeah, and I think it's what's the value underneath comfort, because if it's something that makes you feel nostalgic and safe, that's one thing. But it's also about what Myles was saying. It's really things that are fit for purpose. And because we won't be rushing back to necessarily rushing back to a workplace, we won't need the things that make us feel more acceptable in a urban environment or a workplace environment. We're going to need the things that make us feel comfortable at home. And I think a lot of those are the old favourites that we've already got in our wardrobe, or versions of that.
Mm. And functional, practical, all of those things on top of I think the comfort is one of those things that is not going to go away. People are always going to want things to be comfortable, but there has to be those, workwear, I think, is going to be quite an interesting thing to return back to, at least to examine the fundamental aspects to how to construct denim garments in a very traditional workwear type of way, so that they are really quality, strong, and they're going to last a very long time. So it's not all just overlocked and serged together and breakneck speed. It's like there's a return to sort of craftsmanship, and that goes along with the fibre, so that you have that comfort, but you have an expectation that when you buy your jean, it's going to last you a lifetime.
So investment, people will consider their apparel buying as an investment rather than current what we see is use and throw culture. I mean, you feel that investment in an apparel would be, kind of on the minds of the consumers for a long time. We should have this. This is a long-term investment.
Yeah. There's no reason at all why you should have to throw clothes away. I mean, there's a lot of encouragement at the moment, especially with the lockdown, that people should be taking the time to repair or customize or individualize their garments and things like that. And I think the more people get into this personalization and the sort of care and all that Marie Kondo sort of taking things out of your wardrobe and refolding and putting things back and holding things and touching it, it's like food. If you go to a supermarket and you buy something in a box and you chuck it in a saucepan, you heat it up really quickly, that doesn't feel so good as when you've ground the spices yourself and you've carefully kind of made this meal that just tastes so much more delicious. And it's that handling, I think, of the item of clothing and feeling that the connection with your clothes, and feeling like this is going to stay with me forever, and if it rips or if it breaks, I'm going to repair it because I know how to do that, or I can look on YouTube and someone's going to show me how to do it. And there's a lot of tutorials and all of that kind of thing now as well. So that's really healthy, I think.
I think you're absolutely right, Myles. There's a friend of mine who lives in Ireland, and through this, she started doing daily tutorials. She's an embroiderer and a print designer, And there's something absolutely beautiful about sitting and watching her teaching all these different sewing techniques, and the slowness and the realness. And it's just, she's so poetic, and, you know, it's just absolutely beautiful. So actually allowing and encouraging and championing people to be unique and be themselves, rather than like a sausage production line, but celebrating the uniqueness. I mean, stuff that, you know, has been the great force behind Gucci, that amazing quirky uniqueness has yet to really filter through to the high street. But I think that's when you go into a vintage store, what's exciting about it is you don't know what you're going to get, and everything is completely different, and some have been completely worn out, and some's got a different sort of sensitivity, but it's all got a narrative, and there's something really, really magical about that, and that's not something that the high street necessarily is very good at, but it's an opportunity going forward, and that's the important thing. It's like celebrating, meeting people for who they are and where they are, and celebrating their uniqueness and making that an asset is something we've forgotten.
So this is do you think that this is a tipping point for anti-fashion? Kind of, we're talking about fashion way we're looking at. So is it really the tipping point for anti-fashion what we have now?
I sort of feel at the moment we're in anti-fashion now in our homes because no one's looking at us and it's really not important what we look like. But I've got this feeling that after lockdown and after all of this, when we're allowed to go back out again and given the chance to go out shopping again, I've got a feeling that fashion could come back in a really strong way, because when you look at fashion over the years, recently it's become so many different things, and it's hard to just describe what fashion is these days. So maybe something really strong's going to come out of this, you know, restriction and how we're unable to do all the things we were able to do before. And so there could be this return to fashion, and people might start to really appreciate the quality of clothing and all the craftsmanship that's gone into making it. And the high end, you know, you could say that a lot of people are suffering financially at the moment and they won't have the money to go out and buy expensive clothes. But maybe if they do have the money, they're going to save up and they're going to buy those really expensive pieces because they, you know, mean so much more to them.
I remember when I was once in Turkey working for one of the mills, and they sort of taught me the Turkish expression, can you afford to buy twice? Meaning, if you buy something cheap and it breaks, you know, are you so rich that you can buy two of them? So it's better to invest in something that has, you know, has quality. And I thought that was a really interesting mindset. Yeah. But also I was reading an interview about one of the Danish designers who's based in London. She's called, I think it's Broge. I don't know how you say her name. Broge. And she was talking about, you know, like her mother who had her favourite coat, and this coat was like the colour was perfect, the fabric was perfect, and if the style changed, she would just change the length of the sleeves, or she would take it in a little bit, and she would adapt it, because it was never not going to be her favourite colour, because it was her favourite colour. And the fabric was so great that it was going to go on for a long time. So making things that we can adapt, or having jackets that then, you know, wouldn't it be great if tailors became a thing on the high street? That would be so fantastic, because it would all fit us so well. But having things that then you can then take through the seasons and adapt them, or that designers can imagine, you know, if you want this to look a little bit more like this, then just take it in like this. So you actually meet somebody and take that garment through the seasons with them.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, I was speaking to, you know, one of the Japanese brands, Full Count, a couple of days back, and they said, you know, we have been, you know, you must be knowing it very well. So he said that, you know, we have always been making clothes which are multi-use, you know, multi-occasional, you know, you can reverse them and wear them, and you can create multiple value out of them. And he was saying that we have been doing it for years, and probably this is what the rest of the world should try to do in some way.
I think Japan has always been ahead of that in terms of the way that they have a huge value on the quality of denim, especially denim. And obviously there will be retailers that don't have that in Japan, but on the whole, they have such a huge respect for denim and the narrative behind denim. And I don't think they've really lost that in the way that perhaps we have.
No, they have they're quite an obsessive, really interested level of understanding about the product. So their appreciation of where denim has come from and the history of it is something that they really, they're so knowledgeable about it.
Yeah.
Whereas in other parts of the world, it's just such a basic commodity piece that everyone's got it, but no one really knows about where it came from. So we've got detached. And in Japan, there's just always been this wonderful kind of, so they're so intelligent and appreciative of things. It's always wonderful to kind of like really see how they handle and how they create product there. And the fabric, of course, you know, people talk about Japanese salvage denim is the best in the world, and perhaps, you know, it is.
Yeah. So I think, you know, in terms of trend, they've been talking about the end of more for some time. And I think that basically bottom lines that. And if you think about the end of more, well, then what comes from there? It's like, create it to be good, you know, make it better, make something that people will want to keep and love.
And you know, like coming towards the end of the discussion, what do you think post-COVID, what we can do better? I mean, we already spoken about so many things. Is there anything which is we missed about what we can do better, and you know, how we can improve ourselves for industry?
That's such a big question. We've got more time. Yeah, there's. I go on the assumption that we can do everything better. So my approach on designing anything is I would examine every single step and stage the way I work and the companies that I work with, and just see if you can do things better. And it requires a level of like interest and intrigue into how you can do it better. And so it's really about reducing waste and making sure that your process is as clean as possible and that you're being as circular as possible. And I mean, there's so many things that we can do, but yes, for sure, in a nutshell, we can do everything better.
Okay, so you want to add something? I think she lost the connection.
Right.
All right. So I mean, Myles, do you want to add something else for our viewers who are here to the industry? You know, people know you so well, and do you want to add something? You know, and speak to the industry what they should do?
Well, I mean, I would really another thing that I'd really love to see as well, because you know, whether we're an individual working in this industry or whether we're a company, we have a lot of struggles at the moment. We know that, and there's a lot of things that we simply can't do or change overnight. But I do think that something really needs to change with the communication that goes on between companies. And if we've found a solution to a problem, we shouldn't keep it as our intellectual property, where really being responsible is about sharing the way to do things better. So that's like a massive change. And also seeing companies being truly responsible for everything that they produce should be returned to them in the end, and they should take full responsibility for its disposal or its regeneration. That, I think, is the future for our industry, but it does require that we all start helping each other a lot more and being a lot sort of kinder and more generous with our information.
See, you would like to say something to the denim community. We lost you in between.
I know, I went. I'm back.
All right.
God knows
So,
what my screen picture was.
yeah.
I think my, can you, I think I've frozen again, haven't I?
No, we've got you.
Okay, sorry, your faces are so attentive. I think for me, it was just the fact that, again, just what is the future of your product? And like you were saying, Myles, it's like creating something better. We're at such an exciting tipping point, especially in denim, where it feels like the world between the sort of the real scientists in the denim industry, or the really techie guys, and the designers, were all quite different language. And I think that in terms of like the people that would make all the chemicals, or do all the washing, or do all the fibre production, it wasn't so much what the designers were involved in. Whereas now those two worlds are coming much closer together, and I feel like the denim designers of the future are going to have to be amazing at science. They're going to have to be amazing at understanding fibres. They're going to have to be amazing at understanding the processes and the washings, and what to look for in factories, and what's the best practice. So it's amazingly exciting. We're all getting a load of new education that will help us to create the best practice and the best products going forward. And that's very much happening in our industry, and I don't know how that's rolling out in the wider industry, but the tipping point is already here. It's just how ready are you to communicate where you're at in that tipping point, and whether you're ready to then kickstart it for now or for 5 years, like Myles will say. Be clear about where you are in that process, because it's what the consumers already want. It's just how ready are you to deliver it.
Well said. So I think it has been a wonderful discussion. Both of you have taken out time to share your thoughts, your years of experience. I think has come out in terms of this talk. So I really appreciate that, and I believe all our viewers are enjoying this. And thank you for coming. And please do keep sharing your thoughts. We'll keep in touch. And all the best to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Myles. Thank you, Steve. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.